We now turn from historical case evidence to legal and philosophical foundations, to questions that remain central to international criminal law today. So I'm inviting our Associate Professor, Dr. Luka Tomažič, Vice-Rector for Research at Alma Mater Europaea and Vice President of the Slovenian Academy of Legal Sciences, to join us on stage with his contribution on the eve of Nuremberg, the Kelsen-Radbruch dilemma.
Distinguished guests, dear colleagues, in being invited to speak at this important event by my dear colleague, Professor Dr. Daniel Sitter, he asked me that I talk about legal philosophy. And I was thinking, what can legal philosophy have to say about Nuremberg? And I think I found something that can be said, that hasn't been said before. But before I delve deeper into that, I want to emphasize, I want that we all keep in mind what the debate, what the legal philosophical discussion, let's say, that will follow is actually about. It is about focusing on Nuremberg as a seminal event in the development of our civilization, of the norms that civilized nations adhere to, and that are concentrated in the moral, also legal and philosophical underpinnings of Nuremberg, and in the words never again. So a well-known debate in legal philosophy that was at least implicitly present on the so-called eve of the Nuremberg trials is the Kelsen-Radbruch dilemma. We have two different reactions to what has happened during World War II and to the Holocaust and other Nazi crimes. Kelsen was a legal positivist, meaning that he primarily conceptualized law as being distinct from morality. So we have legal norms and then we have moral norms. And his response to the horrific occurrences during the Holocaust were to see the problem in the fact that the questions of law and the questions of, as was said, Nazi perverted morality mixed freely in the legal system of the Third Reich. And there was another, let's say, reconceptualization, because Radbruch was prior to that also a positivist. And his approach was different, his reaction was different. He posited that the problem is not that there would be a free mixing of law and morals, but he viewed justice, purposiveness, and legal certainty as different pillars of law. And when something happens, like what occurred during World War II, morality must prevail. He posited the famous Radbruch formula, or lex extrema injusta non est lex. So when a law becomes sufficiently unjust, it is no longer a law. So this is a two-tier distinction. On one hand, intolerability thesis, extremely unjust laws lose validity when tension with justice is unbearable, and the denial thesis, laws deliberately betraying the core of justice betraying equality, lack the very nature of law, as law must serve justice. So, as was today already mentioned, the Nuremberg trials faced, from a legal philosophical standpoint, a specific dilemma. This dilemma was that prior to that, individuals were not really prosecuted in the manner that prosecution was really needed and demanded by the conscience of the humanity, by the moral order. And it is often said in legal philosophical debates that in some ways Nuremberg, in legal philosophical sense, legal theoretical sense, was a combination of the approach that can be, let's say, represented by Kelsen and the approach that is represented by Radbruch, although we are just using them as two, let's say, most famous examples of this age-old legal dilemma. Because on one hand, there was clearly some use of existing positive law in argumentation in Nuremberg, and also there was a need to go beyond that, to react to the atrocities of the Third Reich, of Nazi ideology, and to bring the perpetrators to well-deserved justice. And my small contribution to this is that, in fact, the level of analysis needs to be different. We often understand positive legal theories as claiming law is what it is and we must adhere to it. And let's say the broader natural law legal theories as requiring the law to be grounded in something deeper. But in fact, positivism in law is merely a standpoint, a theoretical standpoint, whether law is intertwined with morals or whether it should be looked at from outside. And the natural law is a different approach, where it says law and morality are inextricably linked. So when we are discussing positivism versus natural law, we are really obfuscating a deeper dilemma, a moral dilemma, differentiating good from evil, differentiating the ability to say that the Nazi actions and similar actions are evil, even if no law prohibits it, or even as in the case of Nazi Germany, the law actually facilitated the crimes. So no matter if someone is a positivist or a natural law theorist, there is the same underpinning requirement to understand law through the lens of morality, albeit from two different theoretical standpoints. And we can see this legacy of Nuremberg in later development of international criminal law. I would say that the values of the post-World War II international legal order has had further developments in the direction that was necessitated by Nuremberg. And many of that was already mentioned. The Genocide Convention, International Criminal Court, but very importantly also the concept of peremptory norms of international law, jus cogens, namely the international legal norms that are so fundamental to all of humanity that there is no chance of them being breached, and such a breach to be understood to be legal in terms of international public law. It is well established that such norms are prohibition of genocide, prohibition of crimes against humanity, prohibition of war crimes, prohibition of piracy, and prohibition of aggression. And discussions such as these ones, no matter if we come at them from the historical standpoint, from the standpoint of political theory, from the standpoint of legal theory, are of utmost importance. Because what happened and the horrors that culminated in the ultimate horrors of the World War II, Nazi Germany, Third Reich, and the Holocaust, the battle against them must be won again and again. It is the battle of the values of Abel versus the values of Cain. And it is not enough that they are won like they were in Nuremberg, post festum, but they must be won preemptively. And to achieve this, discussions such as this one today are of utmost importance, and therefore I'm glad that I could be part of it and maybe did some minor, very theoretical, in one minor niche contribution to this broader event. So thank you very much.